right? Say he was gonna kill her ass. Sure. Yes. Because when some motherfucker say some shit like that, get the fuck out of Dodge. Why the fuck are you still hanging around? You think that man playing? That nigga ain't playing. And he's stupid for crashing out of him. Yeah, we definitely said that as well. Yeah, we agree. And she's stupid. Yeah. She's stupid just for staying. He literally beat her to the point where she had to jump. She had to run out of the house naked and go to the police station in her car. She was butt naked. Wait, who was this? I'm sorry. I get like 30 seconds. Let me got killed on the live. The guy got killed on live. Let me tell you the big in the back. Hold on. You heard Instagram Live or Facebook Live? Facebook Live. I think this was Facebook. Hold on. Let me see. It just came in. I'm just thinking about how yesterday when I ended with like a church amen, he was like, oh wow. That's it right there, Sid. But that's why there's so, like I work with TV clients all the time, and I have to be very, very careful because, that's why I ask people permission. Can I mail things to your home? Can I text you? Can I call you? Because some of my clients that are experiencing still in the DV situation now, and try to help them, I can't mail things to their home, right? Because the husband, the partner will open the mail or whatever, It's like, but there are a lot of resources, especially in the more bigger cities. They provide a shelter that's anonymous. Like, there are a ton of resources for people that are going through this stuff. So, I don't know if, maybe people don't want to start from scratch or whatever, but there is a way to remain anonymous and to enter into a DV shelter, and eventually you can get a voucher for apartment, those type of things, because we want to protect, people experiencing DV. And maybe there's a wait list and stuff like that, but you could be in a shelter in the meantime, and then, hopefully restart your life and but yeah, man, that's really sad. Yeah, she was just sort of used to it, like she was laughing. Like even before he threatened to kill her, he said, and I'm gonna beat your ass. And she just was just laughing it off. Like she was like, yeah, you beat me before, and it was just like they both were very, very toxic, terrible people. So we get it, Adrian. Like she was still a victim. She ain't deserved to die. But I mean, you can't antagonize people like that. And also, if you've already gotten your ass beat, if he says, just let me finish this live, or if you interrupt again, like what makes you think that he's not going to try to beat you again? And she just didn't even care. I'm waiting to see this lady comes back.
Had settled with Cassie before the lawsuit was filed, before it was made public. Would we be here? Right? That's a fair question. Well, Nancy Nicole D asks, if Cassie had been married to Combs or lived with him in California, thereby making her able to sue for alimony instead of the short-lived New York Victims Law, which is, by the way, the law that she used to file a lawsuit against it in November 2023, got to get going. Would Combs be here today? So she was married to him in California and had, I guess, another legal avenue to sue him in order, collect money from him. Although it doesn't change the fact that she probably could have still filed a lawsuit against him for these very same allegations. But you tell me where you stand on this.
Well, I mean, listen, whether or not she could have sued him for alimony, she sued him and she got $20 million. So we go back to the question that you posed, which is something that Brad has been pretty outspoken since the beginning of that he messed up in not resolving that case before it hit the media. And if he would have resolved that civil case, like he had the opportunity to do so prior to her filing it, a lot of the things that Cassie said would have been secret.
They could have come to an agreement. They could have had her sign a non-disclosure, agreement regarding the terms of that, but he didn't. And when that became public, that's when it started to snowball and everything started to click, and then the video of the 2016 attack came out, and that's when the federal prosecutors started to listen and pay attention to the case and really try to formulate how they were going to be victims. So I don't know whether or not if she would have been married to him would have made a difference, but for sure if he would have resolved that case prior to paying her the 20 million, prior to her generating a case number, prior to it becoming public record, he would have definitely played an important role in whether or not he would have been in the situation he's in right now. Brian, we have a super chat question that came in from Christina Lester. Christina Lester, thank you so much. If this results in a hung jury, and when we say hung jury, basically the jury could come to a decision, right? They weren't in an impasse. If this results in a hung jury, how quickly could another trial take place?
The judge can put it on his docket and retry it within a period of months. I would think a lot of that will depend on his custody status. If he remains in custody after a hung jury and the judge decides to keep him in custody, I think the defense will move quickly to say, hey, we want to go right back on trial as soon as possible because we want to end this for him and try to.
We never thought about the hung jury situation. That could also happen.
Yeah, we always get the transcripts. As soon as the transcripts are transcribed, you're ready to rock and roll. You've already got the blueprint for how to try this case. So I wouldn't expect it would take a long period of time unless there's any.
Question is, for a hung jury, do they use these same jurors or they get new ones?
Yeah.
Okay. And would they offer him another plea deal?
Yeah.
They could, because it was like, why cut this over again? You want to save the taxpayers' money if you can. So, you know what I'm saying?
But he's so arrogant, he wouldn't take it.
After the hung jury, which I'm not so sure they'd have the ability to do anyway. So, but I would think it would be quick, particularly with an incarcerated defendant like this.
I mean, he wanted to go to trial quickly on this. It's kind of rare to have a federal case.
It's the fact that it'll be a year that he's been there.
Got arrested, indictment, but he was going full steam ahead. He didn't seem to be, once he couldn't make bail, he didn't want to spend one.
Now he got something to rap about all the time.
And getting acquitted. This is from Purple Sandy X over here, Mauricio. Hi from England. Hey, that's amazing, so far away. What do you think the verdict will be as of now? And if guilty, how long do you predict he'll get?
Listen, that's a good question because they can convict them on a multitude of things. They can come back and convict them on everything, and then they would be looking at possibly a sentence over 25 years, including up to life. Or they can convict them of some things and acquit them of others. We've spoken a lot about the difficulties involved in the RICO, in the RICO count. But jurors, anytime that your freedom is in the hands of 6 or 12 or 14 jurors, anybody that does what we do or what attorneys do knows that you have no idea what they're going to do. Everybody that's a trial attorney has won the ones that we should have lost, and we've lost the ones that we should have won. So jurors, for the most part, are pretty. You really don't know what you're going to get. And also, you really don't know how the judge is. There are the guidelines, but in the part, people operate, they'll keep you up. So federal judges routinely can do whatever they want. They don't because they don't want to get a field. But there's a lot of variables at play here.
Okay, go to you. Brian, this is a super chat question from Hunter Team and 2. Do the RICO predicates, do they all agree on or need to be the exact same? I think the question is, let's be clear. I guess there's 8 underlying predicate crimes, right? The prosecution needs to prove at least 2. Does the jury need to agree on all of them, right? Beyond a reasonable doubt. Talk to us about the underlying predicate crimes, what the standard is, what the burden of proof is.
Yeah, they have to have unanimity on at least 2 predicates. So, whatever predicates they are unanimously agree on, whether it be guilty or not guilty, they have to inform the court of that. And if there are 2 predicates that they are unanimous on, all agree as to that predicate act, and there are 2 of them, then they've sustained their burden and you can be frank.
We're talking whether some are stronger than the others, right? Transportation, intermediate prostitution, drug distribution. Okay, got another question coming in from Rapid Superstar for this generation. Explain coercion so we can understand, please. I think this is with respect to sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion with respect to Cassie, the Terrifying, and Jane. What are we talking about when we say coercion?
So coercion, for instance, we'll give the example of I recorded you without your knowledge having this freak off, and if you don't do what I say, I am going to publish this, and I'm going to ruin your career as a singer if you don't continue to come to these freak offs and have sex with whatever man I want you to. That's coercion. With Jane, I remember there was testimony about whether or not she was dangling her $10,000 a month rent, whether or not she was going to be younger. Things like that could be coercion. You're pretty much forcing people to do something that they don't want to do with either a threat or.
Saying your certain games have certain good products automatically logical people play. So we're assuming everyone kind of now it's life or death, like they've practiced, they got up on it, it's gonna be near instantaneous. That's what I'm saying. No one's gonna sit around for 5 days going, hey, let's make sure we're sure you don't need to. And once the signal's been communicated to you that it's not one, you immediately move to two, and only the two people that are in that decision make the decision for everybody else, and then they follow. You know what I'm saying? Yes, that's been in the West. I think the signal clear. Well, the signal is like, I was. The signal is actually more I don't want to make it more cool. Like, there's reversion going on. Like, so, in the blue eyes puzzle, every person's doing the same recursive calculation independently. Like, no one's talking, there's no coordination, but as soon as that logical condition gets met, everyone acts exactly at the same time. It's the same things. It's like parallel logic processing that the humans are doing. It's similar to what AI does. In AI, you get multiple processors, right? And they're all handling separate threads of a problem at the exact same time. So instead of just waiting for one core to complete like a long chain, the system breaks up. And then when all the processors come, they like report back, boom, you get the solution. That's what makes AI feel instantaneous. It's not sitting around and chilling and waiting for the answer. It's not speed alone. It's scale and concurrency the same way that the humans would act, is what I'm saying. The humans are just going to instantaneously sit down when they know that not before. They can't cheat. Why do you make things so complicated? Here's the thing. If there were only one blue-eyed person in a position, one or more, if there were only one, the one would know it right away because all he sees is brown eyes. That was me. Alright? So when you're sitting there as another blue-eyed person, right, and you see that one is still standing and he doesn't know it right away, right? You would say, fuck, it must be me too. And you guys both sit down, you guys are gonna have the same thoughts at the same fucking time, like, oh, bitch, he's still standing, there must be another person. Who else could it be? Everybody's brown, must be me. Sit down. Okay, hold on. Okay, wait, hold on a second. Hold on a second. So, that's what the other person who sees nothing but blue eyes, not blue eyes, nothing but brown eyes, is one blue-eyed person, right? But that's what the other blue-eyed person would look at and see. They would see one blue-eyed person and they would wonder why they didn't immediately sit down. They'll immediately reason that they must be the other blue-eyed, there must be another blue-eyed person, it must be that. They'll immediately try to sit down. And that's what both people would say at the same time, correct? That's what you're saying, right? Okay, wait. So I've been following that since most setting. So here's the thing, though. If you look at it from a brown-eyed person's perspective, and you saw two blue-eyed people, and you saw both of them hesitate to sit down, both of them not sit down immediately, you should also be.
You did say Sierra Leone, and she's smart enough to know it's in West Africa. That's all.
She's also smart enough to not relegate it or isolate it to the Africans. This is a problem with the Africans, as opposed to this is a problem with people in power. Yeah, don't do that. Don't jump into the car that's already crashed. It's the white women of the mobile
talk to. Hey, but what about this? What about this? Okay, so yeah, I don't disagree with your wider, thing. But okay, so people, no. So people want all this power, right? But what is it they want? The showing off. So what does that actually get you? What if we break it down? I love to break it way down. So what does it get you? Does it get you attention? If you show off and you impress people, why? You just want to impress people?
You get women. So you get women from it. The reason why people care more about like relative status more than they care about absolute wealth. Like people would rather be the richest person in a poor neighborhood than the poorest person in a really rich neighborhood. They care more about their relative wealth than their absolute wealth. Why? Because women care about relative wealth more than absolute wealth. People care about getting women.
Right, exactly. Because what you get is attention. If you get impressed, so this is in a general way, impress somebody. What are they going to do? Well, they're going to try to service you. They're going to be on their best behavior. They're going to try to impress you. They're going to give you attention. So it all comes down to our social. We're super social animals. So it all comes down to that, I guess. Sexual, social, emotional. We're going to get that stimulation. That's why the inequality of it matters so much. It's interesting.
So I'm always an outlier. The most modest cultures were just the Amish, Hobbists, rural Japanese. Don't get started on the Amish. I have direct experience with the Amish. They are not modest. And Harity was the most ostentatious cultures. We got Arab Emirates in Dubai. You got Nigerian elites. You got Russian Nouveau Riche. You got some Indian wedding Bollywood type shit. Do you know how rich most Amish people are? Are they rich? They're like wildly rich. That's sweet. But they don't show off. They don't wear bling. They don't fold. No, they just buy more and more and more and more land that they don't know what to do. Which is awesome. And they do have their own versions of showing off. It's just the Amish showing off. What's the Amish way to show off? The nice horse, the nicest buggy, the best off-grid system for your house, paying to build the church, all sorts of stuff.
In the Amish world, I'm curious, what gives social power? So let's say a woman and she wants to marry the best guy and get the best husband. What gets her that?
She probably marries someone that's a church elder that has control over sort of setting the norms for the community. If you're pretty and you're docile, you'll do all right, I think. Can't be too docile. Just docile enough not to get noticed. If you're too docile, your brothers will start raping. Brothers? Yeah, it's a problem, believe me. What should you think you get one of these guys? Like every time they ever get these guys?
When you say brother, you don't mean your blood brother.
Yeah.
That's great.
There's a documentary on Prime called Sins of the Amish, which has women that escaped their Amish communities that talk about what happened to them. That's part of the problem is they're so insular, and they do crazy stuff. Yeah. Like this one woman was talking about how she locked the door on her room, and her brother literally took the hinges off the door so he could come in and bust her. I don't fully understand. With cultures like that, I don't fully understand what's to stop the girl from in the middle of church being like, my brother molested me. Because they blame it on the woman. They say you tempted him, it's your fault. Okay, well what if, how about this? What she said, hey everybody, I don't want to cause problems, but my brother keeps molesting me, and I'd like you to stop. What do you guys recommend I do to get him to stop molesting me? So you're not even trying to blame him. Like, listen, you are blaming him, and you're just like, I want some tips. How I can get him to stop molesting me. Like, first of all, women aren't allowed to speak in church, so.
My friend.
There's that problem. Secondly,
Okay, this is 10 Minutes of Tanya. I've invited a bunch of people to the room via cell phone text messaging. Welcome. I hope this is a nice interruption for you from your typical townhouse conversations, which are of incredible value. For example, talking to Amir this morning. Wow. I mean, I gotta say, it is actually kind of entertaining. It's kind of ridiculous, you know, the Black Rabbi and Caleb. And it's like all these different people with all these different positions. And there's no education. It's just like dunking on each other, shitting on each other, shit testing each other. I invited El Normo. So El Normo has a copy of the Tanya with Rabbi Granny Shapiro's commentaries. So, but he said he's not available, unfortunately. Let's see if anybody else replied now. You said you're going to the gym then jujitsu.
Yes, I'm going to the gym. I'm going to feed my parents' cat, and then I'm going to go to the gym. Then.
Nice. That's what I'm about to do. I'm about to go to the gym and then maybe go down on well, actually, I have to do this like lawsuit paperwork. So, what do you think about that clip of Ben Mendelsohn libeling and slandering me this morning?
Yeah, that was a I think I have 2 bars, but I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you. Okay, how's the audio? Can you hear me?
Well, yeah, I can hear you, but I'm driving, so I'm going in and out.
Shmar Yahoo. Okay, this is Tanya. This is serving God. Let me turn this off.
Oh, we got this man Shmar Yahoo.
Okay, this is 3 minutes of Tanya. Here we go. Serving God. And you will return and see the difference between the righteous and the wicked, between those who serve God and those who serve God not. There are 2 types of in-betweener, those who serve God and those who do not serve God. Those who do not serve God are not wicked, but merely passionless, lacking a sense of self strong enough to ignite selfish desires or deeds. They keep the way of God by default, which is why they are said not to serve God at all. The true servant of God actively arouses love for God. This can be done in 2 ways. First, by immersing the intellect in the infinite spaciousness of God. Second, by arousing the passion for God resting within the right side of the heart. Both are ways of serving God, but only the way of immersion is called perfect service. These are the subnotes. When you return to your divine nature, Penemayut, you will see clearly and act godly. Malachi 3:18. Though Malachi is clearly talking about 2 types of people, the righteous who serve God and the wicked who do not, the Alter Rebbe takes the passage to refer to 4 kinds of people: the Zadok righteous, the Rasha wicked, the in-betweener who serves God, and the in-betweener who does not. They practice the mitzvot simply because it never occurs to them to be otherwise. Immersing the intellect in the infinite spaciousness, Gadlut, of the infinite Godhead, Ein Sof, induces a self-emptying ecstasy, Bittul Hayesh, that engulfs all form, Yesh. Even the Kelipat Noga and the Sitra Achra in the emptiness, Ayin of God, the way of self emptying ecstasy, is called perfect or complete because it leaves nothing untouched. The in betweener who serves God is a passionate, feeling person who is troubled by the competing voices of the heart, who learns to honor the left side of selfishness by aligning it with the right side of godliness. The alignment comes about in three ways. Some for whom passions are weak conform their actions to the good by adhering strictly to the mitzvot, sacred commandments. This is the way of nefesh, the way of doing. Some for whom passions are stronger focus their attention on the heart's innate yearning for God, doing what is right as a lover seeks to please the beloved. This is the way of ruach, the way of feeling. Others for whom passions are strong, but who find themselves drawn more to the mind than the heart, set their mind to the contemplation of God's infinite spaciousness, and in so doing, empty themselves completely into the one. That was 3 minutes of Tanya. So when it says that there's like the left side of the heart and the right side of the heart, you think it's stage right or stage left? Oh well, normal has arrived. The Zodic is here. We are merely in-betweeners, El Normo. We need the guidance of a Zadik. And since you got the biggest Zodic, it's imperative that you're here. Peace, blessings, and strength to you, El Normo. So,
Want to mod me?
yeah, sure. I don't see. I don't seem to see the ability to actually mod you. Oh, never mind. There we go. So Zach is going to the gym. He doesn't have the Tanya with him, but he's here for the Toyber study.
So we're going to read some Tanya.
Yeah, we just read 3 minutes of Tanya on called.
Read, I just, I'm not.
Can't hear you. What did we read?
We read a chapter called Serving God.
Let's have a look. That from that book?
Yeah, it's page 51.
I got it. 51. Wow, it opened to that. That's weird. I just left it open.
I don't know. Can you hear me right now? I have 2 bars.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, because that's where I opened the book to, too. It just seems like a natural place where your thumb flicks it open.
That was a really nice one. I was listening. I heard most of it while I was driving, and it was beautiful. And it was a complete antidote to what I was listening to before, to Amir's Room, and it was an antidote to Mr. Anderson talking his nonsense. And what I really liked, one line was something about how, like, the good work is going to engender love of God in others or something like that. What did it say? Like, the challenge is to make others love God, too. Or something. Anyway, I don't remember exactly, but that was a nice passage.
The last verse, it says, both are ways of serving God, but only the way of immersion is called perfect service. And the subnote again is immersing the intellect in the infinite spaciousness, the gadlut of the infinite Godhead, Ein Sof, induces self-emptying ecstasy called bittul hayesh that engulfs all form yesh. Even the Kalipat no Ga and Sitra Achar, the emptiness Ayin of God, the way of self-emptying ecstasy, is called perfect or complete because it leaves nothing untouched. So anyways, El Normo, pick. Do you want to read a chapter? You can pick any chapter you want, and try to go for 3 minutes if you can, or 5 minutes, or
I
however long.
want to meditate on that. I think what I want to do is meditate on that and put on the film. That's what I'm going to do. It's a great book, and I'm delighted that you recommended it.
Yeah, I've given this book to
For a while,
many
it was
friends.
just me and John reading from the Tanya. John was the first one, but he told me to buy it, and I bought it. Can you find, though, one of you, can you find earlier in that passage where it says the thing that I'm referring to, and maybe reread it, the part about how, like, it's made, like, expanding love. It's something about, like, encouraging other love of God. The true love should encourage love of God or something. It was like maybe a third of the way through. I don't know if you know what I'm referring to. Norm's gone, but I wish I had my book to find it.
Yeah, El Normo's got the right, putting on tefillin and even reading his book, and if you have anyways, it's like a ritual, really, and it's psychological. So, if you practice this stuff, if you come on this app and you do what we're doing now instead of doing what you're doing with Amir, even Caleb, I'm just like, I cannot believe Caleb even gives these people this much time. I know he's doing it because he wants peace, and brotherhood, but at the same time, like the opportunity cost of like doing this type of communication, this is just so much more valuable in terms of your time. So it's just recording people on here being social is unbelievable because what you're really doing is, since I'm recording it, people are creating like personality biometric data, you know, in Google, in Meta. So it's just like you are your words, but that also means you are what you listen to. So if you listen to T Robs or Amir, in this weird like dualistic, non-dualistic way, you become Amir and you become T Robs. Therefore, it's like imperative that you don't listen to them. That's my opinion. If you really want to be, eyes on the prize, you don't listen to these people. Like anything because once you've taken a sample, there's no reason to take any more samples. So it's like a you problem to continue listening to them. That's my opinion. Unless you're bootlegging them for archive purposes, or as we discussed, legacy spam.
I think my particular type of insanity is that I keep hoping that bad people will magically become good.
But they won't, because they're never going to read this book. They're never going to read a lot of books. They're just going to maintain.
I think that you're one of the few, I hear exactly what you're saying, but I think that you're one of the people who can relate to me on this because, and they talk about this, the Yetzer Hara. They say that the greater the Yetzer Hara, the greater the potential for Yetzer Hatov. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, but that's saying, because it's like saying you can go far left and therefore you can go far right. That's all it's saying.
It's because you yourself have done evil things, and you yourself have looked in the mirror, and you yourself have said, I regret being that way, I'm going to try to be better. Then we know how hard it is to resist the evil temptation. We know how strong the pull of the evil temptation is. Therefore, I can relate to Amir and his pull towards evil temptation, but I keep hoping that he will someday become like me and feel a desire towards becoming a better person.
But you see, the thing is, you are essentially saying that he should depoliticize and therefore he'd be better. But that's the thing is this book is very deep politicizing because it deals with the Ein Sof, which is the universe, and the universe is not necessarily political; it's metaphysical. So these people never get metaphysic, and therefore it's really just that stagnant echo chamber conversation that will never change. And so that's why this book is special, especially in Jewish theology or philosophy, esoteric study. It's an important book to read. And every time I go to Chabad, I always meet something, because a lot of people are depressed. A lot of people are not happy. And they're looking for solutions and answers. And they don't even necessarily get what they need at Chabad because Chabad doesn't pass this book out. It's a very adult book because it's mystical. So um, every time I go to Chabad, I've always been like, "Have you ever read the Tanya?" And some young guys like, "No, I never read that. What is? I've heard of it. What is it?" And then I send them this link, and I've had people buy the book on the spot at Chabad, at parties, at functions. They're like, "I'm buying it right now." So it's interesting. This book is a viral book in many ways, I think, because it's universal and it's smart. You can read this book and really become very intelligent from it because it gives you an advanced psychological perspective. And it deals with anger management, emotion, infinity, who you are, where you come from, a whole slew of problems. It solves a lot. It is basically the Jewish Tao Te Ching, as you know. It's also kind of similar in length to the Tao Te Ching. Um, but I have there's a lot of like associated books to this book. I have a book. It's like called the Rebbe or something. It's about the Alter Rebbe who got put into prison and like miracles of his like prison experience. Um, so there's a lot more to this book, but there's like an actual history to it. Um, so it's an interesting book. Anyways, let me read 3 more minutes for you, and then we'll end the room. Do you have 3 more minutes? Okay, I'll just give you the history book. This is called The Arrest and Liberation of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi. This is page 63. The news of the Rebbe's release spread like lightning, and the Hasidim of Petersburg streamed to the house of Rabbi Mordecai to welcome their leader. The joy in its demonstration in the streets of Petersburg were very enthusiastic and expressive. Even so, the Hasidim showed restraint and refrained from harming or insulting any of their opponents by way of revenge. They all knew the Rebbe's opinion about that. Regardless of all the pains suffered, the Rebbe wanted and demanded peace, and his wish was a command to the Hasidim. The Rebbe's words consoled and strengthened them, and he enabled them all to bear all. Immediately upon his liberation, the Rebbe wrote a pastoral letter to the Hasidim. This letter is famous by its name Kotonti, after the initial word. Kotonti, I feel diminished by all the graces and all, etc. This means that through every grace with God bestows, man is to feel very humble. Grace is the right hand, and his right hand embraces me. This is the state of being truly close to God, more so than previously, and he who is ever closer to God is an extraordinary way, should feel himself correspondingly that much lower and lower, humble. As is written, from afar God appeared to me, for whatever is before him is, as it were, as nothing. Thus, the more one is before him, that much more one is to regard oneself as nothing and null. This is the level of the right side in holiness and of grace when extended to Abraham, who said, "And I am as dust and ashes." This is also the trait of Jacob, who therefore expressed his fear of Esau and did not rely on the promise of, "And behold, I am with you." For Jacob was very insignificant in his own eyes on account of the multiple graces extended to him. For with my staff, etc. Therefore, he did not regard himself fit to be saved. As our sages explain, maybe sin will cause, since it appeared to him that he had sinned. It is different, however, with the corresponding opposite, Ismael, grace of Kalipah. There, as grace increases, so he grows in pride and conceit. I therefore come to make known to all of our adherents in regard to the numerous graces bestowed to us by God to hold on to the traits of Jacob, the leftover of his people and the remainder of Israel, who belittles himself as if he were but truly leftovers and superfluousness, which is to no avail. Do not pride yourselves over your brethren. Do not open your mouth or whistle at them. God forbid. A strict warning: nothing is to be mentioned. Nothing with a capital. Nothing is to be mentioned. Subdue spirit and heart before every man, in the spirit of truth unto Jacob, with humility and kind reply which removes anger, and with humbleness. If you do so, maybe God will give it into the heart of the brethren, for it should be like as water reflects the face. Rabbi Joseph Isaac remarked about this. Jews in general and the Hasidim especially were to the Alter Rebbe as a pupil of his eye. He, in his great sanctity, in addition to his great sagacity, was cautious with every word. Not only in his acts were weighed heavily to be in accordance with the halakha, even to the most minute detail, but also every single word was considered very carefully to prevent any possibility of being cause of something improper. The traits demanded by avodah are good traits, and when these involve intellect, there emerges the beauty of good traits. Nevertheless, even in such a case, there is a possibility that they be misused. When my father taught me the Tanya and the Igareth Hakadesh, he explained to me the passage in the letter Katonti. Do not pride yourselves over your brethren, and do not open your mouth or whistle at them. God forbid, a strict warning. Nothing is to be mentioned. In the most profound expositions of Avodah, showing how a Hasidic boy should convert his heart, my father explained to me the idea of, and his heart became proud in the ways of the Lord, how the animal soul in man goes so far as to claim that these are good and praiseworthy traits. My father showed me how, in such a manner, one may be misled and may descend even lower, not even sensing the fall into crudeness and materialism, God forbid. Look and note, said my father, these words which the Alter Rebbe said, or to whistle at them. A whistle is an expression of inward ecstasy, stemming from holiness. And in regard to that, the Rebbe says, God forbid. Still not satisfied, he even adds a strict warning: nothing is to be mentioned. How much love of Israel is implanted in these words? How much sanctity and reverence are in this guidance? Just to think, after passing through an ocean of suffering, it is not necessary, and one shouldn't mention it, but nevertheless, one ought to feel and understand. So many physical agonies and spiritual pains did the Rebbe and his Hasidim undergo, and after all that the Rebbe warns, a strict warning not to pride themselves over their brethren. It's amazing because that's what Black Rabbi does all the time. He's like, you have no idea. He's like, you're inferior to me. He's like, I am so close to Hashem and you're nothing. Like, it's crazy when you hear him go at it sometimes. So that's called Arrest and Liberation. Also, that was called the Katonti. So these are like sacred Hasidic texts. And I really encourage you to read these things on Clown House because you kill two birds with one stone. Can't stop preaching enough to you to be productive on this app and stop, you know, wasting your time here. Unless you're trying to gain political power. That seems to have some value. And just recording people is enough to cause major emotional and psychological breakdowns of these people, as you witnessed today. So this has been 10 Minutes of Tanya, Jewish Wisdom, a Torah study. Thanks, Zach. Hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.